Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series, talking now to military folks. And you may get a question in your interview around your bosses, and they may ask you to describe your best boss and your worst boss and explain why you feel that way. So let's talk about that question, because the underlying thought here is you've got a new employer and they're trying to understand what sort of management style you tend to prefer and maybe tend not to like. The real trick for you as the candidate is you don't necessarily know what the person across the table will manage like. You don't know what their management style is going to be. And you've also got to watch being politically correct and all of that. So let's talk about that a little bit. And there's no 100% right or wrong answer, except I guess the general rule here is don't badmouth somebody. So your best boss, typically, for most people, is going to be somebody who holds you accountable, who is fair, firm but fair, and understands and allows you to know what the parameters are. He equips you with the tools to be successful and then steps back and allows you to get the job done. Maybe has an open door policy, that sort of thing, to where if you do have concerns or questions, you've got a chance to go back to get results or to get your questions answered. And that's usually the easiest way to talk about the best boss. The tough part of this is to talk about your worst boss and to explain why. Now, I think for most people, I don't care whether you're in the military or you're in civilian life, the worst boss you can have is one that micromanages to the nth degree and who thinks they know your job better than you do and will tell you many times over how it should be done, and you know full well that's not the right way. And we've all been there. We all have those war stories to talk about. Problem is you can't go out and say that. Look, the person across the desk from you may well be a micromanager. They're not going to come out and say that. They're not going to tell you what their management's, even if that's their style, they're not going to tell you that. So if you come out and you say, well, my least favorite boss, they micromanage, they stared over my shoulder all the time, you and I both know that that's a bad boss, but you might just have cut yourself out of a job. Now, granted, you may not want that job if only you knew that your future boss was going to be like that, but there's no way to necessarily know that for sure. And so what I would encourage you to do if you're hit with that question of what's your worst boss, I think I want to not play that game. I really don't want to go down that path. I'll try to avoid it. And ways to avoid it might be to say, well, you know what, including me, nobody is perfect. No boss I've had has been perfect, but you know what? I've been able to learn from everybody that I've worked for. And while there may have been areas where maybe I disagreed or what have you, what I've done with that is I've taken that just like I would if as a child and I grow up and say, okay, now that I have children of my own, here's how I want to behave or how I want to discipline them. And so I've learned throughout the years things that now I can take with me as a potential manager in the future, and I feel do a more effective job. Again, that's kind of a lot of BS when you really get down to it. It really is. But you know what? You don't want to step in that trap, and the trap is to badmouth somebody. Once you go down that path, your chances for getting that job have really dropped. They really, really have. So just play it safe. Don't take the bait. That'll wrap it up for this in our Edge Library series, dealing with that question for military folks about your best boss and your worst boss. I'm Randy Wooden. Thanks for watching.